really not probably as advanced as we'd like it to be. But already you can see that it's having no problems tracking along with those arms.
So, anything in particular you want me to
switch over here, yeah.
I was just getting more interested in these kind of like movies. I'm just different.
So while we're looking at that, let's have a look at Seth Rogen. So this is Seth Rogen, who's doing a capture session for the movie Paul. I noticed they've got a very big studio, a little bit bigger than this. So there you can see his facial data as well. So they actually, there's no markers on his face, so they decided not to use any facial tracking. So they've just used his face as a reference for the animators. So the animators would have that to work with, and they just got their own facial system and hand animated to that. But his body motion, they've captured in full using this X-Sense suit that we just saw the guy at the earlier demo.
What is it, just sensors in the suit?
Yeah, it's like a gyro. I mean, it's the same sort of gyro that would be in a mobile phone.
Right.
When you lift the mobile phone up to your ear, it knows it's been moved. It doesn't know its position in space. It just knows that it's been moved. And it's able to triangulate by communicating with all the other sensors then where it is in space. So I think the crucial thing about this is that motion capture has its applications, and where an animation is very cartoon-like and very stylistic, it's difficult to argue the case for motion capture because it obviously has a very sort of human-like look to it. Things don't get exaggerated, things don't stretch, things don't move as fluidly as you might imagine. So in the case of movies like Paul, where you have a real character, it's perfect because you are getting real muscular motion, the kind of micro movements that you get from just somebody standing around. I mean, when somebody stands, they're never still. There are these micro movements in the body that just give it a sense of life. Very, very difficult to animate. What are we?
Here's 1, 2, sorry, 2.
Yes. Okay, that's encouraging. So I'm not looking at the back camera yet because I'm too scared. So let's have a look. This is good. Yeah, pretty good. And cool. Yeah, well, it's coming to some kind of arrangement there. So in terms of creating content, obviously motion capture has another advantage in that if you set things up, let's say you're in a setup like this and you're able to capture a lot of animation, you can create animation pretty quickly. Beautiful classical animation, even if it's 3D, if it's got squash and stretch and bounce and all of the wonderful interpretation that a great animator brings to a role. That takes a lot of time. And then it tends to be quite expensive. So, I mean, a good example is there's a scene out there online of one of the Scrat in one of the Ice Age movies, and so it's from Blue Sky Animation. And they obviously have reams and reams of people setting up the virtual puppets, the people who do the fur, the people who do the rendering, the people who write the stories and storyboard everything out. But they had a pretty much a 10-12 second scene that was given to an animator, and he started blocking out his poses, and getting approval on the shots, and slowly but surely adding a little bit more animation in. But that 12 seconds of animation, so just purely the animation and not the actual construction of the character, took him 4 weeks. So 4 weeks on 10 seconds is pretty mad. And of course, the final scene looks absolutely magnificent. As you know, the quality of these films, they're wonderful. And there's great emotion in the scene. It's enthralling, but it does take a lot of time to do properly. So motion capture has its applications, particularly where you're looking at humanoid characters.
How much early is PlayStation cameras here? About €20 each. 20, 25 euros.
Yeah. So I mean, we're trying to figure out how to use this. We know. We're just kind of telling you guys what we know, which is not a huge amount about it right now, but currently we can see that if we can refine the accuracy, because we can see that we've just lost a hand, but that's really now, in fairness, due to the very, very low light settings here. This is a really, really difficult room to do this capture in. Ideally, what you want is a white cube. So there's loads of applications for us, because we might decide to use this as setup data for animators, and we just came from a session where we were chatting with Ben from Giant Creative, and they used motion capture. Initially they thought it was going to drive the characters, but they ended up using it as reference for the characters, as a three-dimensional reference within the scene, which is a really interesting way, because you can actually block out a huge amount of performance if motion capture is very simple and economical to use. In terms of planning out scenes, let's say it's live action, we do a lot of animatics where we'll actually construct a basic version of a set, maybe texture map it with roughly what the walls look like, and we'll plan out the action and then plan out the camera moves that describe that action. That's always an unbelievable pain, taking a model and having to get it to move through, and then the animatics, it always looks rubbish because they're handed by their side and they look like robots. So the idea of being able to sort of quickly and cheaply, let's say, run into a room in our studio that has this technology set up, have somebody prance around and record that movement, and then bring it back into the software, and you've actually got all of your stuff set up for an animatic. And then if we can get the accuracy, if we can improve the accuracy itself, we could actually employ it for use in inserting digital characters into real worlds.
Have you tried to connect for motion capture? I know it's a bit jittery, but at least.
Yeah, I mean, the Connect, a couple of days before we started working with this stuff, the company who writes the software to interpret the cameras came out with a solution for 2 Connects. One Connect doesn't really get you very far, because it's brilliant in terms of its depth sensing, and you're not reliant on light, which is a massive plus. But if I have a Connect there, and I'm standing here, it can't see my right arm because I'm occluding it. But in a 4-camera setup like this camera can't see my arm, but that camera can, and that camera can. So you're triangulated. So you need more than one Connect. So you can do straight-on stuff with Connect really, really easily. But to triangulate more complex motions, you need a few Connects to be talking to each other. And that's on the way. I mean, I'm sure people already have solutions that they haven't actually put online yet or made available to the wider community. Although the company called iPi were using their software for these cameras, they just brought out a 2 Connect system.
Oh, have they? I knew they had a 1 Connect system.
Yeah. So they've had, I mean, when we were looking initially, we kind of said, without there being, I mean, if you had something like a 3 or 4 Connect system, that would be much more
brings
easy.
it right down to 200, 300 euro to set it all up.
Yeah, but I mean, the costs aren't really an issue, because I mean, these cameras are so cheap. It's very, very cheap kit in terms of comparing it to 50 grand. the brilliant thing about the Kinect is that you would not be limited to camera lenses, you would not be limited to having to have light. You could actually motion capture pretty much in the dark, because of the way the Kinect sensor works. And that would be like a massive plus, because any issues that we're having today will be just because of the low light conditions.
Sorry, that software that you're using there, the IPI Studio, that's a trial version that you have.
Yeah.
How much is the full license software? Or is
Good
it?
question, actually.
It's about €600.
Is that all?
Yeah. And I mean, €600, got to use 6 cameras, set it up with 6 cameras, because the accuracy that you will get. So if you set it up with 6 cameras and you're in a room with light coloured backgrounds, and there can still be a bit of clutter around the place, I mean, you should get very, very good quality data. And I've kind of seen some of the stuff they've done with 6 cameras, and it's fantastic. So we're just getting to know the system and trying to optimize the accuracy of it. But I think once you tweak around a little bit, get to know how it works, the accuracy is there. And definitely, I would think that you could use it for actual animation projects.
Are the PlayStation cameras, are they just like webcams, or do they have any special sensors?
They actually, yeah, I mean, they're really good webcams. So they have a very high frame rate. They have a 60 frames a second frame rate, which is really good for motion capture, because if I move my hand like that, any camera is just going to make it blur. So if you're capturing it like 25 frames a second, you're just going to get a streak. So the software's not going to know what's going on. So being able to shoot 60 frames a second at a decent resolution is very, very handy. The PlayStation cameras are very good at optimizing the exposure, and they're very quick. And I think that's a problem for some of the other ones. They're not as good in low light conditions. So very, very specifically, I think you'd be creating a lot of hassle for yourself if you use some sort of Logitech web camera. There's a reason that it's specifically the PS3 cameras. Yeah, a few years ago for Darklight, we did a little project where we put some characters. Oh, Barrow Street. We put some characters into a real environment with motion capture. We kind of had to use motion capture because we had 4 days to make the film. So that was 4 days to sort of script it, shoot it, post it, composite it, animate it. So we used off-the-shelf motion capture for this. But I see no reason why the data from these cameras couldn't be used like this.
Actually, what did you use for tracking the footage?
Simplice. Brilliant little program.
How do you use it yourself?
Yeah, you know what? These cameras, when we're calibrating, we're struggling to get the calibration to work properly. It's struggling to pinpoint the exact position of the cameras, and yet I know that the algorithm in Simplice would be much better at doing that than what they're doing themselves, than what they're using here. I mean, they're doing something very similar because they're looking at a background and they're picking out points and they're trying to triangulate. Not sure that they do a brilliant job of it.
Have you ever tried motion tracking with Simplice? Just calibrating like 4 cameras together at the same thing?
No. And I know there's actually been other kinds of software that will actually track a body through space. And I think there was a product out there about a year ago, but it was actually discontinued. I don't know whether they went forward with it. So let's have a look at how. Cool, well, kind of there. It's a little disturbing that it's I'm not prepared to accept that the body is actually back there.
It's just going from my belly.
So there is a lot of processing going on here. It needs to be a PC with a serious amount of value. I mean, this machine's got 24 gigs of RAM, and it's a very fast machine. And you can still see that it's slow enough. Bingo. Okay, so. That's not bad. Okay, so I'm going to take this into Saltimage. Aha! That looks pretty good, actually. Yeah, I'm going to take this into Saltimage and stick it on the character. And just have a look at how the data is like. Okay, so I am going to. The other thing is we actually have to put a card in that machine because 6 USB ports. You know, you kind of make sure that you've got.
Oh, for the cameras.
Yeah.
Like the USB 2 controllers and so they're fine.
Obviously, you couldn't just use a USB hub thing.
No, because it doesn't have the speed for the cameras.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of cool that we've had the six cameras plugged in, and it does capture the data in real time from 6 cameras, which is kind of cool.
And is normally that length of time to compute the data?
It is,
Usually takes that long?
Yeah.
It's doing a lot of calculating, to be honest. As Gavin says, it's quite a powerful machine, so.
Yeah.
But with the piece that we did in Piranha Bar with more light and more white background, it was much more accurate in the actual, it was still taking almost exactly the same amount of time, but it was much more accurate track.
Right. I really want to stress here that this is us just messing around with this. It's very much at an early stage for us evaluating this. So who knows what we're going to get. Now, I wonder if when we look at we get a duplicate. We just get the of my desktop here.
I don't think you were both saying, oh right, just your desktop. Yeah.
So I want to see that and then see it.
Go to your
So that software, iPad software, exports a little.
This is just change your resolution there as well.
Well, actually, fine. So this is a little FBX file, motion builder file that we can then take into Saltimage. So this is a little bit of motion capture that we did many years ago now. And this is a guy struggling against the wind. But it's an interesting way to use motion capture because obviously we've just stuck a whole lot of stuff onto his body. And there's a nice sense of animation from him. And we did some interesting things in this motion capture session. I mean, we had canoeists who looked like this. So there's some weather graphics stuck on top of motion capture. But the coolest thing we did in that particular session was we motion captured a dog. So we got a dog to wear like a kind of a black leotard thing and put motion capture markers on the dog. And yeah, dog looked like a kind of a weird rat creature. But with motion capture, he shook, you know, he was getting out of the bath and he shakes to get rid of the water, and he did it for us on cue. great. Okay. Okay, so here's a character in T-pose. So we want to import the motion capture that we've just done. So let's go to import. And we are going to go FBX. So that was very successful. It's brought in a null, a single null on the movie, which is a bit disappointing. Okay, so so this is our data here. You can just see the T-pose. It's a little big, but actually we're not too worried about size at the moment. So I've got to do just one very little quick adjustment to this to get it in. Okay, so I'm going to select this animation. I'm going to save out. I don't know whether you guys are many of you are animators, but I'm going to save this out as a single action, which just compresses all of that animation into one single bar that can be moved around in a timeline for editing.
Is that the quick way of doing it? Instead of trying to map it across, tagging it.
There's a multitude of ways. In actual fact, when I take this in, I've got a rig in here already that has the same naming conventions, so it's very, very easy to do this, or at least it should be easy to do this. Okay, so I've saved this off as a source. So I'm just going to save that source. This is MoCap. Jump. Okay, now what happens if we take our rig for our character? Okay, so I'm going to load up that source now. So the idea here is that I've got a messed up head, is what I've got. Okay, so this is our animation. We have a head problem. Which is going to need a little bit
At least even more that you're doing on his head. The new trick of it.
And there's yeah, let's just play that one. Hey! There's our jump.
It's not too jittery, actually.
You know, it's jittery enough. That would definitely need a little bit of smoothing. Let's have a look and see if we can figure out what's going on here. It's unusual at the head. One of the limitations of this iPad software is that it actually doesn't track the head. Okay, I'm going to do a capture of that.
It was in my neck, I was for
Okay, so let's do about 400 frames of that. So this is an initial capture now of this data, and really I think what we're going to see is a bit of jitter, but overall it's not too bad. What I would then traditionally do with this, and you would actually do this with any motion capture stuff, if you're taking motion capture data in, you always get a little bit of inaccuracy that contributes to some high frequency jitter. So you can go into the function curves and globally or individually use processing options to just get rid of some of the jagged rotations and stuff. But interestingly enough, when we did the wind stuff, the guy struggling against the wind or the canoeist, so we went to the motion capture studio in Oxford, and we did our performance. But the amount of processing time going from the performance to getting a final rig was enormous. Now a lot of that would be cut down now, but still.
You have to go to the UK to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a motion capture studio obviously in Trinity, but the guys are probably more science focused, although they've just done this great project with Giant as well. They're probably more interested in discovering the secrets of Usain Bolt's stride than some weird alien. Jump.
Jump to go.
Long indexing is the sign of heavy testosterone. Cool, not bad. I mean, you can see it's a little bit jittery. The wave is really good, and the legs are quite good.
Would that be actually putting down keyframes on each frame?
It is, yeah. I mean, in actual fact, it's capturing 50 frames a second.
Right.
So there's sort of subframe accuracy. There's 2 keyframes for each frame that we're looking at here.
And what would you do then to filter down the jitter?
Okay, well, I'll show you very quickly. This thing is really cool if you guys haven't seen it. This is a non-linear animation editor. So the bar that I'm putting around is that whole animation, and I can use that bar and I can just layer it up with other animation. So I can blend it with other animation shapes, and I can stretch it, and I can cycle it, and I can sort of do all sorts of things. It's a really cool way of working with large animation data sets. So here's our data. So that's what it looks like. And make sure that our rotation continues. Okay, so probably wouldn't do this globally. In fact, what I might do is select the hips and knees line. Cool. So I don't really want to touch the hips because actually that's the center of gravity, and smoothing can be very dangerous. So there's loads of different stuff you can do to your function curves. I've got curve processing here. I'm going to use a smooth, and what smooth is going to do is going to take out some of that really sort of high frequency jitter, those jaggies there. You are going to lose some animation there. in some good information. We can decide how much this moved by. So let's just see what that was. So that's the old energy curve there, and that's the new one. I think that's probably a little bit intense. So I'm just going to reduce that a little bit. So this, I'm going to quick look at this without with some, a little bit of smoothing on it. Let's go with 2-fingered salute. So the next development in the software is going to be a head tracker, and they're going to put more work into tracking feet, and they're doing multiple connect options as well. And I mean, I would imagine that we're definitely going to incorporate this tool into our pipeline. If we suddenly decide, okay, 3 connects are going to do it. I mean, 3 connects, it's nothing.
There's a thing called Kind MoCap. Have you looked at that? Kinny MoCap? It's a plugin that goes through ice. So
Oh, sorry, yes, yeah. I was thinking Kenny MoCap, yeah.
I haven't seen enough because that's, you know, if you could put that through too, you wouldn't. It goes straight into the software.
Yeah, they've got a single connect at the moment, and actually the website's down as well.
Did you have a look at the plugin?
Not the plugin itself. I had a look at some of the results, but whoever designed it was active sort of a few months ago, but it's kind of offline now. That's with a little bit of smoothing, but you know, I would be going in there and actually looking at limbs and seeing, okay, there's a certain kind of jitter that we know shouldn't be there, we don't want, and that can be eliminated very, very easily. this is a little bit of a mess around that we did yesterday.
Would it be easy enough to deal with the feet sticking to the floor?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's a case of just going in and adding, you can add layers of animation on top of that very, very easily within the software. That's an idea, that's a good example of what happens when you smooth it out. Now you can see we're still having some issues, and to a certain degree some of it is smoothed out a bit too much. One of the crucial things here is that you've got to add in finger animation.
Well, you can't do that, can they not?
No. It's the fingers are too highly resolved for the cameras. So you've got to add your finger animation and obviously some head animation as well. A worried looking alien. Okay, so that's it, guys. That's kind of PlayStation hacked cameras for motion capture. What we're going to do next, I think, ourselves just as a studio is set it up in a wider room, get our 6 cameras working, just get the accuracy down a little bit further. The main problem we're finding with accuracy is, like I was saying before, the field of view can deal with too much distortion in the picture, so the person kind of needs to be quite far back. Because if I'm close to that camera and I stand up, my head just gets enormous, and the optics of how things distort are not very scientific. It's more to do with lenses and optics rather than it is to do with equations. It's not linear, so the software just struggles. It's seeing different amounts of distortion in each lens. It's not
do you walk around like a circle on the floor or something like that to put the cameras on? You can see them there, so.
Yeah, we've got markers here.
Right.
Which just more the view, so when your feet go in and out of shot. You can do it just on the torso, but for the feet, we're effectively looking at the cameras. You can actually just mark out the left and the right, because you calibrate then the light within that space, so it knows what space you're in.
Yeah, so you can see in the cameras.
You can see.
Yeah, you can see the.
You can see there, that's
So, actually, right, that data, looking at those cameras, the data there is really good. I mean, this is the only chink in the armor here, really. And you'll notice that it kind of was almost choosing to ignore one of the cameras. Although it was this view that didn't match up. But I think, if that wall behind there was a little bit more light on Stephen there, and if the wall behind there was a little smoother, we'd be sorted. So I think it'd be great for us to fiddle around this a little bit more and get into the studio, but I suspect that in 3 to 4 months' time we'll be replacing the PS3 cameras with Kinect, hopefully 4 of them. But it seems to be a big ask to get them to work together in the same way that you can get the PS3 cameras to work.
But the thing with the Kinect is once you plug it in, you're running with it, because I've bought one and tried it out.
Yeah.
Went through Motion Builder, I think, and you're doing it live. You plot the animation straight away on it.
Yeah.
But it jitters a lot.
Does it?
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah. It's the only way.
It was a great experiment, but I wouldn't think you'd be able to use it. And that's why I hesitated with that plugin, because having tried it with Motion Builder, it was really jittery.
The only way that you work on that is by triangulating, by having more of them.
Yeah.
But I think that the data stream from it is quite intense. So I think that you need quite a big pipe to get the data through. I don't think it's as simple as having 600 by 400. I don't know what way the data comes through, but I think it's a little bit harder to work with.
Have you tried any facial motion capture?
Yes.
How did that work out?
You know what? I have to get that movie off you. You don't have it on a
It's on my laptop.
on a stick. Oh, your laptop.
The same on laptop.
So we used Face Robot for facial capture, and we had messed around with it a good bit. We were interested to see could we get reasonably professional results from off the shelf. I mean, the answer is yes, but there was a bit of a learning curve involved in getting our hands around Face Robot. And I'll just show you.
This last 5 seconds.
So let's have a look at Face Robot in action. This is not what we've done typically. Our stuff is much better than this. This is so good. So that's Face Robot doing its thing. It automatically programs musculature, skin sliding, and reads facial capture data and just does an amazing job of it. And what's really interesting on this is how they've used real data on quite a stylistically deformed head.
Maps across nicely.
Yeah,
Is that pretty much automatic in Face Robot? I haven't actually used the software myself.
Simon can talk about it.
It is and it isn't. I mean, you'll get kind of about 60% of the way there out of box, but you're going to have lots of, particularly around the jaw and the teeth is a real problem. The eyes are really good. You'll get the eyes straight out. Not bad, as long as it's not kind of, the proportions aren't too mad. It always expects to get a humanoid head, or at least within the realms. Like that's about as far as you want to push it. That example there.
Okay.
But you will have to do tuning and a lot of tweaking and enveloping and shape stuff around the mouth and jaw area, because that's really all the problems.
Not us again, but how weird is this? Face Robot again.
Does it set up collisions with the teeth?
It does do, yeah. It slides. It does all that automatically. It slides the skin over the teeth, but a bit of tweaking is involved. I mean, in Face Robot, you've got to draw in your wrinkles. You've got to do some wrinkle maps. But just the way the musculature moves, the way the flesh moves, is quite realistic on it. What I love about it on the test that we did is that we didn't put any character into the face that we modelled. It's just completely static. It has no emotion on it whatsoever. And you plug in something you captured from somebody else, and suddenly the inert character becomes totally animated with a soul, a human soul, and it's really effective. I mean, in terms of emotional storytelling, getting an audience on board with your characters and empathizing with your characters, I think it really has a huge potential as a tool. I mean, Avatar is the obvious example. This is Zoe Saldana in Avatar. I think it's very important that we start with this. So this is the character with our first facial solve, and as you'll see, it's how can I describe this? Less than optimal.
Is this using the iCloud?
This is using stock facial capture that comes from a different source,
Okay.
and applying it to a model with face robot software. So you can see that's a complete mess. And I suppose the point of showing that is to say that, yeah, when you start with face robot, you need to do a little bit of tweaking. But when you do the tweaking, you end up with something that looks like this.
What are you tweaking exactly? Are you tweaking just the weight maps in it? Or
Everything. You've got kind of three things. You've got shapes, sculpts, and weight mass. So kind of like your traditional enveloping.
Right.
When you look at how the eyes are moving in that
map, you
map,
can rather than having like a one bone to write to, there's lots of little controls
Lot of
all
subtle.
over the place. So it kind of hides.
Right.
So it's only when you go in to do that, then it unhides all those, and you can smooth out some of the scenarios. So if you're getting too much high frequency detail, you can use the smooth brush. And then you can go in and use sculpt tools to, you know,
But
create a band shape.
you only have to do that like it's all painstaking work because I've got into it. But you only have to do that once, and then all your motion capture should work.
Exactly, yeah. It's all
yeah, the whole point is that you can set up.
you got to keep testing it, because you may go, okay, it's fine now, and then they'll pull a pose and boom, it breaks again. So maybe you just fix it for that pose, or I mean the best case scenario is trying to fix everything you can throw at it. Which,
Right.
I mean, like any kind of visual effects, I still reckon you're going to go in and have clean up shots, you know, and right down to paint fixes at the end. Yeah, you can get it pretty fast.
This is actually a very difficult character to do because he doesn't really have a nose. So his nose really wants to move. So we have to get the weighting on his nose exactly right, or rather Simon to get the weighting.
Also, the chin studs were a bit of a hassle because he doesn't want to do those. He just wants to see smooth detail of the chins.
So what do you think? Any other thoughts, questions, expressions of horror?
Using the iCloud, it looks a lot simpler than I would have thought with the setup.
Yeah.
I know I didn't see any of the calibration or anything, but you know, just getting in there, doing it, it records the video, use the 3 or 4 cameras, and
Yeah.
does it.
Like, it's just a little frustrating this afternoon that there isn't 6 cameras and it's not a white studio, because then, well, I think we'd be sitting here and going, well, look at the data. The data is actually really there and really, really usable. The data as it stands is usable with a little bit of processing. So I think once you've sort of got your head around it, you know, you should be able to use it as a tool that feeds into animation. I mean, like the guys in the Giant were saying, it doesn't even have to be something that you apply to a character. It could be something that you're using as a reference for an animated character, and being able to see that in 3 dimensions in software and revolve around it is very powerful. It's a great way of animating.
Well, I came here looking for a cheap way to do motion capture for in-game stuff, so that's the way this looks great.
I mean, I've seen a lot of the iPod stuff. I've seen a lot of game stuff. One of the things that we were trying out, you'll see that Stephen did a jump there. We were wondering would it be able to do the fast motion, and it actually is really good at fast motion. You know, it's got the camera's got a high frame rate, so you know it actually captures everything in slow motion. I mean, it captures everything twice the speed.
So you actually set it to 50 frames because you're using that for animation. So for games, we could just whack it up to 60 and it will catch.
Yeah, I mean, we just set it to 50 frames for just a convenient metric, because when it comes in and you set it to 20 frames, it means that there's a key always on a frame. You know, we could have used 60. It just would have meant that the keys would have been on each frame. You know, which gets you a little bit more temporal resolution in terms of things moving around quickly. But I would say though, think about the space, think about the amount of space you've got, because I just assumed, because we've got some quite big rooms in our studio, so you know we started working with rooms that were sort of 16 feet square, and it's not enough. So you've got to be thinking about 20, 25 feet, and those last few feet actually make all the difference. So that's worth thinking about. So there's definitely a movement here. This is a great way of doing this. The future's on the way. I suspect that the future is probably Connect. And who knows, maybe one day Piranha Bar will go out shopping and buy an XN's suit for $50,000.
You got to prove it first.
No, you know what? You need to speak with the top guys and get them to start building one. No, I'm laughing, but I'm serious, because there's the dad group, Benjamin, he's a French guy, and he does it with pure data, and he's done a whole sensor stuff. It's not that far away. It's translating, for me, it would be translating from something like that pure data into the BHV kind of like fire the sensors, they're not that expensive. You don't even need, you can almost use tape on them. And that captures them in. It's just getting it from one file format over to another.
Well, the iPi software, one of the absolutely brilliant things that it does do, regardless of accuracy, is it processes the position, but it's already starting with the model, so it just exports the model. Because that step between capture and export can often be torturous, absolutely torturous, depending on what software you're using. And actually, iPi is brilliant at that. It just exports a model that's ready to use. It's there, ready to go. So that's pretty convenient, even though the processing does take quite a while.
Is there a face robot for Miner?
What people do is they use Face Robot within Softimage, and they export. It's set up to export data to Max and Maya. So they use it within Softimage product. And then export it. You can cache the meshes, you can export the bones, and there's various different ways of getting them to work together. And certainly, like Blur Studios in Venice use Face Robot to do some facial stuff, and then export that to Max.
And you're always going to cache the mesh anyway, because you don't want to bring in Face Robot rig, because the rig's pretty unwieldy, and you're not going to throw that on top of another character rig. So ultimately, when you're happy with what you've got, you just cache the mesh and then attach that to a body rig.
And if you learn how to use Face Robot, you won't need to bring it back to mine. No, that's seriously, because it's quick. I think it would be quicker to learn. If you can learn Face Robot, I think the other part would be easier to learn.
I think the attraction is that there would be teams of 20, 30 people working on facial capture in the motherships in the Hollywood studios. And what this has all been about really is what can you achieve on your own with a good community of people, with your ear to the ground, and with a little bit of ingenuity. And I think the answer is quite a lot.